Welcome to As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we have our March recap podcast. That means y'all hear clips from every interview that aired in the month of March, including interviews with Jake from Final Gasp, Bryan from Bosse-de-Nage, Eric from Testament, Ryan from Fotocrime, David and Mauro from Vicious Rain, Amon from Lost in Hollywood, Nick and Alex from The Silver, Nate and Justin from Red Arrow Highway, Jay from Guilt Trip, Ian and Aaron from Resistor, and almost all of S8nt Elektric. We've had so many killer episodes this month, and if you haven't checked them all out, I'm so excited to share this episode so you can get clips of music and parts of the interviews with the band, and I hope you all go back and check out an interview you might have missed. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of As the Story Goes. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. You can find links in our show notes or at asthestorygrows.com for our mailing list, our Discord server, and our Patreon page, where $1 a month gets you early access to every episode. Enjoy today's recap of every interview that aired in the month of March. There's this wonderful quote in the press release where you say, we blossomed into a group of people that all have similar influences, but see them from different perspectives.
Yeah.
Seems like this record was more collaborative than previous efforts. Talk to me about the writing process and kind of what changed and what drove that change.
Yeah. I mean, for Morning Moon, for example, that was just my drummer at the time. And I, for the most part, everybody else came in and, added parts for their with their instruments really, but we were all writing songs. Everyone was writing songs on this time around, and Peter was the newest addition to the band, and he's like an amazing guitar player. And I play guitar, but I'm not doing it live.
Yeah.
So I would meet up with him at his house, and we would just spend hours in the basement just messing around with stuff, because he's like a gear nerd and also just knows what to do.
Yeah.
And we were writing together, and then we brought in Kevin, who's our new drummer, and he was basically our drummer from the get-go, because our old drummer couldn't tour with us or really do anything at the time. And Kevin was writing parts, and Alex and Sean were writing songs and had their ideas, and it was just everybody was coming together and writing together for the first time. That's what I wanted, and that's what we all wanted.
Nice.
Because I think it kind of showcases that what we're capable of. We're capable of writing something that's maybe a bit more cohesive.
Yeah. Did that take the sound in directions that you were like, whoa, I didn't expect that, but it's, I mean, obviously, they thought it was rad because it's on the record.
Yeah. I mean,
you want to be like, well, I hate it, but we're going to record it.
Yeah, I don't know. There's, No Hand to Lead is a really slow, rock song. And it's, I guess, a ballad kind of in some ways. I'm not saying we wrote a rock ballad, but it's the slowest song we have on the record, and definitely the most structured one, I think. And we were all just kind of I don't know, we've never done anything like this before, but also, who cares? That's the whole point, is to push yourself, right?
Yeah.
You want to see what's possible, and you can still make it your own. And I think that's what we did, and we achieved. We were able to, add different elements of maybe more traditional songwriting, but it still sounds like Final Gasp at the end of the day.
I've been friends with all the guys for quite a long time. Our guitar player, I've known him since elementary school, and he's played guitar for a really long time, and I don't know, we got into music together, into metal together. And I don't know, he would always play guitar and I would always kind of wanted to do vocals. We tried to start a band when we were teenagers that never went anywhere. But then later on, we did actually start a little black metal project, and we made a demo. I played the drums on it, and I'm not a drummer. It was very bad drumming. And there used to be this website that was a forum / kind of like archive, maybe is the word for it, called Power Slave. It was specific to the Bay Area. And it was basically like a registry of all the local bands, all the local metal bands. And there was a forum on it as well. And most of the stuff was like pretty bog standard metal. People listening to like Machine Head or something, bands like that. And there were some extreme metal people there with talking about death and black metal, but only really a handful of them, including myself. And we recorded this demo, and I put a call out on the forum asking if anyone wanted a copy of the black metal demo, and a couple people replied. Really, only a couple people, like 2 or 3. And so one of them was our drummer, Harry Cantwell. He was like, "Yeah, I'll take one." And I sent him the demo, and he was like, "This is cool. I like the vocals and I like the guitars, but I could play drums better than this." We were like, "Yeah, cool. Come on over." And he came. I went and picked him up like the next week and brought him over to the garage where we were rehearsing, and played "Freezing Moon" by Mayhem, and it was kind of love at first sight or something. We just immediately started writing songs, and I brought on another guy I went to high school with who I listened to metal with as well, and we changed the band a bit. And the guy that I went to high school with was our bass player, and he kind of like steered us into like a more experimental direction with that band, and it got a bit unwieldy eventually. We had 3 vocalists, including myself, and it was just a weird band that has some of the same DNA as Bosse-de-Nage, because it was myself and the guitar player, and Harry as well, and we eventually just fizzled out. We played like lame local shows in front of the other bands and their girlfriends, that kind of rite of passage that everyone goes through as a fledgling band. And so that fizzled out eventually, and the other 2 guys went on and played in other bands and stuff. And then at some point around 2005, 2006, they were like, we were obviously still friends, and they were like, "Well, I miss playing black metal. Like, let's just like start a band to play some old-fashioned black metal." And we got ourselves a rehearsal room in Redwood City for any locals listening. And it was just like a room in a roll-up warehouse type situation, and we just started writing songs pretty quickly. And then we got another friend of ours who Harry worked at the bookstore with, named Drew. He came in, started playing bass. I think we recorded, we recorded a couple demos, and then recorded our first album all ourselves. There's another guy at this rehearsal studio that we knew, who was an aspiring engineer, and he came and set up a laptop for us and some mics, and we recorded our first album live. And then after that, we kind of were just like, well, we don't know what to do with this. So I guess that's kind of, band has kind of run its course or whatever. Kind of posted it online. A guy named A$AP Decker played in Ludicra. He's a drummer from Ludicra, and which is a local band here. A legendary local band. And then he went on and played in like Agalloch, and he's still kicking around. He had a blog called The Cosmic Hearse, and I'll back up a little bit. We connected with him, and he put out our demo as a tape on his label called The Funeral Agency. Okay. And then later on, he had this blog called The Cosmic Hearse back in the day when, music blogs were run by individuals and tastemakers and things like that. It was a very specific era in the mid 2000s. He posted that, and we kind of just, moved on, I guess, from that. And then later on, a few years later, Jonathan from The Flenser contacted us, and he was like, "Hey, starting a label. Really like your album, and would you be amenable to me releasing it as a CD?" And we were like, "Sure, yeah." And then as soon as so that happened, and then we were like, "Well, maybe we should write another album," and kind of reconvened and just started writing music again.
What keeps you inspired to keep writing and keep making music?
Well, I mean, it's what we do, but at the same time, I think having new blood in the band is something that's kind of keeps it going. You get excited, especially with, like having Chris in the band.
Yeah.
For me, new drummers is always a lot of fun. Not that I want other drummers to leave or, it's just the way stuff happens, but like this new record, there's a lot of different styles on there and a lot of different stuff. And, it keeps the motivation going. And, I think that, getting out there and playing live and people are still coming to the shows and, digging what we're doing still. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I really like about Testament, and kind of Anthrax has this same thing too, where you're both thrash bands, but like on any given song, there's like death metal elements or, British heavy metal elements. Like, at what point as a band collectively, or maybe it's from your DNA, were you just open to like, we're not going to be pigeonholed into like, this is what every song and every record has to sound like?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, like for us, I think, I've lost track of how many records we got. I think this is our 14th record, maybe 13th. Anyway, yeah, at some point, it's like the same formula. So you have to mix it up a little bit. Yeah. And I've been putting a lot of my influences of what I'm into the last decade, which is more heavier stuff, more the death metal and black metal kind of stuff. But knowing that I can't turn Testament into that, but just taking, some of the vibes from that. Yeah. And, a lot of bands, that's how new genres are born. They get influence from something else. But, we like to keep it to where, we haven't had a ballad for a long time, and Meant to Be is on there. That one really sounds like something out of the 80s, yeah. But still fresh, I think. And then, Nature of the Beast is more kind of an ode to new wave of British heavy metal kind of stuff. And then the two openers is just total new school, I think,
yeah.
Just.
Yeah. With Coliseum kind of coming back and releasing Infinity shit and just like playing shows again, has it helped kind of maybe refocus Fotocrime in a different way, where you're like, there's this creative element happening over here that is not what Fotocrime is, and it's easier to, I don't know, differentiate, maybe play in that sandbox in a way you weren't when you first started?
Yeah, honestly, it makes me want to do... It makes it all feel of one piece more than it did before, where I think I was clearly fighting against Coliseum when Fotocrime started, in a way, like wanting to just really put that there and do something different. I don't feel that really now, and I can 100% see where like the Coliseum Infinity shit record influenced the new Fotocrime record because I just kind of wanted to rip a little harder, and I kind of wanted to have everything be a bit more energetic. And I think maybe I felt more calm in terms of my songwriting. I don't know. I hate to use journey, but like my mission, like I really had a mission to become a better songwriter and to hone my songwriting craft. And I feel like over the first 4 Fotocrime records, I did that. And then on the new one, I just was like, well, let's just write some fucking cool riffs and some punk songs, And so it was cool. Yeah. So, but it's interesting. Yeah. I feel like the new Fotocrime record is probably the closest to Coliseum, but I feel really comfortable with that. And so I think it's easy for them to be differentiated, but I also think ultimately a band is a group of people, and even though Fotocrime is essentially ultimately me solo, whoever's in the band with me has a huge effect on it at that time, whereas Coliseum will always be the 3 members that are that ended the band and that are in the band now. Like, it will never not be them. So that's that, whatever we create is that, and whatever this is here. So, it's interesting, man. It's cool. I again, when you're having those moments of like self-reflection, it's really nice to like see where things meet and to kind of see like, oh, this thing I did really bled over into this. And I think it's neat for artistic growth to kind of understand that. And it's one of the reasons that I'm fanatical about doing so much music, because every bit of it leads to something else. And it's really advantageous to be creative all the time. It really helps.
Was it easier finding the words for this record in English because this was the second one and maybe you're more comfortable knowing phrasings or things?
I think so. I think, of course, it's also because we are more experienced and more comfortable writing together. I think it's just like a mix of everything, really.
Yeah. And even like working with a producer, like sometimes we're very like, in our heads with stuff. We're like, oh no, we have to get the perfect word for this. And he's like, dude, like, let's just go with like this word. It sounds great, and he levels, sometimes he levels us so that we're like not overthinking too much on things that probably don't matter that much.
Right.
So
right. I'm just thinking about like knock loose being like arf arf, and it's like, that's not a clever lyric.
It's the greatest thing ever.
Right.
To be honest.
Yeah. What types of things were you pulling from as you were writing this record, like lyrically?
I think for this one, just like we mentioned before, like we were just like writing about life and experiences, I guess. At the same time, what we really wanted to do on this record was to be on the more aggressive side of things. So I guess it comes naturally that we write about like grimmier feelings or heavier stuff. So yeah, I think it was a mix of both, really. Like, we didn't really have an intention on what we wanted to write about while we were doing it. But yeah. And in the end, like when we had like almost the whole record finished, we were like, listening to the songs, looking at the lyrics, and we're like, oh shit, like we have just written a record about just feelings, like surviving, like the feeling of surviving things,
Yeah.
So everything came naturally together, and we didn't like intend it at all. So
yeah, and at the same time, it's really cool because it's like the next chapter of like it really continues on what comes after the feeling of letting go. Because I mean, we with the last record we tried to convey like that there's good that comes from it, like the the saying like one door closes, one door opens up, but that's easier like said than done. And I think this record really is about dealing with what comes after, like dealing with what comes after you let go.
I'm not feeling better. Doesn't mean that I still feel. I'm feeling this sort of nothing. Don't mind it taking the best of me. Yeah, all I had was never enough.
What kind of things were you trying to hit musically? I mean, there's like a general metalcore vibe, but I mean, you guys use a lot of auto-tune, a lot of electronics in your music. It relies heavily on singing. So what type of things were inspiring you, or were you hoping to accomplish musically?
Yeah, like especially with this album that we put out in March, we wanted to have a strong contrast in our songs between like heavy parts and not hold back on those parts, but also have this like dark R&B, dark pop influence in our music, because we really like artists like Garrasi and also, of course, heavier artists. There is no like limit for us regarding heavy music. Like we are into super heavy music as well. So we wanted to like combine that and like develop our sound into that direction. And, like don't hold ourselves back. If we want to try something super heavy, we do it, and if we want to try something super poppy, we do it. There was no like I hope this isn't heavy. I hope this isn't too heavy or something like that. We just didn't hold back and express ourselves in the most authentic way we could think of.
Yeah. It definitely seems to be the way a lot of new bands are going, to add those dark pop elements and like not being afraid to embrace pop music or electronic music, and just like, these are all our influences. Like, why shouldn't it be a thing?
Yeah, right. Like I think there was a time, maybe I don't know, 10 years ago, where it was like a trend in the scene to like get super soft and like transition only into rock songs without any breakdowns and stuff. But I'm super happy that isn't the case right now. Like everyone wants to be heavier and heavier, and I really enjoy that. And it's the same with us. Like, of course, we finished now the second album and it's coming out soon, but we're of course still writing and having ideas how it could go from here. And there's no limit regarding the heaviness.
For the band as a whole, this new album obviously expands on the first album, but I mean, that first album is still very much an abstract look at black metal, if you will.
So I think the first record specifically, most of the individuals, myself, MJ, Enrique, were dealing with like personal things, external personal things in each of our lives. And I think that is really the key, like, genesis of the two of them wanting to do this in the first place, as like an outlet to say, like, we have these things, we are going through these things, we have these things to say. I think this is the appropriate way to do it, like this kind of music. And that record was born out of that. Whereas this album, while it builds on what was initially done, I think all of our lives have changed in the 5 years it's been. So, I mean, granted, a lot of this was recorded before, so even back then, changes had happened. I think this one is a lot more, like, internal like introspective, like personal, like not personal, but you know, personal demons type of subject matter, and that kind of drove this album. So inherently very different than the first album, which was like harsh, maybe aggressive, whereas this is more like I don't want to say thoughtful, but like musing or you know, ruminating on your own existence.
It seems like there's definitely a lot more. The dimensions on the second record, I think there's quite a few that were added since the first. But I think Brian, you're pointing towards like the strange, perhaps somewhat strange genre space that the music occupies from a listening standpoint. And I think Nick probably feels similar, knowing MJ and Jamie very well, like working with them in other projects. Like I know that this is how we have it. We have this in common, actually. At least I can speak for the three of us, MJ, Jamie, and I. Like, the genre questions are very porous and honestly not really to be heated much. There are musical logics and emotional logics and like sort of like, I would say sonic logics or like logics of like excitement. I don't even know. Like there are aspects of metal. They're not aspects of genres of metal, right? And it's about like marshaling those elements in a way that does justice to every individual genre element that's involved, right? Which I would say, my personal view of the Silver, which I have that kind of interesting, like I have the outside perspective of not being a part of the first and now a part of the second. Yeah. There's a black metal field. There's a heavy metal field. There's like almost like an operatic or like sort of like, it's not symphonic, but it's like, it has that grandiosity of some of those like more like cheesier kinds of metals or whatever. And they're all kind of thrown into a pot, but filtered through a very specific compositional logic that comes from like mostly just being musicians, I think. Yeah. And like just being like, metal has high flying solos. Just because I'm playing in a black metal field doesn't mean we don't have high flying solos. Like why would I starve myself of a thing that I absolutely want? Yeah. So I think we're just not afraid. We don't really give a fuck about those things. So I maybe to your friend's point, I don't think any of us would say genre is a fuck. It's important. But more is possible than maybe those containers will allow. And I do think the Silver pushes on some of those containers a little bit.
You guys started this in 2020. I imagine this is like COVID Zoom calls, like we got to do something like once we finally get out of our house.
Yep. Justin was losing his mind. Monkey Robot War had ended. Yeah. And we were sitting in our houses. What you're seeing here is a recording studio at my house. So I kept just playing music and recording and stuff, but I was just by myself. So Justin just started sending me full-blown songs that just didn't have vocals on them.
Yeah, because I basically was in that. I'm like, I'm not leaving my house. It was overnight. I going into the office turned into working from home, and I had no social contact. And I'm like, and the band just kind of dissolved that we were in, and music's just something that I need to have that outlet into my life. And so it's like, I'll buy like an interface and I'll try to figure this out. And so I started writing. I'm like, I started writing some songs, and with a completely open mind of like, I'm not writing this for anybody. And oftentimes it turned into me just, cracking a beer and then, going Friday night and just drinking. And I'm like, I'll put 4 guitar parts on this. Who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're never going to play it.
I have a MIDI controller, violins. Fuck it. Let's do it. Yeah. So, I started just making these songs, and I'm like, no one's ever going to hear this, but it gives me some sort of outlet. And then, I sent a couple things to Nate. I was like, Nate, I've been doing some of this. Like, what do you think about it? And then,
yeah, I remember getting them, and I was like, "Oh, it's like grown-up person music." You know, like it really, like it was a.
I don't know how to feel about that, but
it's a compliment. Trust me, it's a compliment. It was like it was a step up from the Monkey Robot War songs for sure. They're just a little more complicated and really fun to write vocals over. So I started doing that, and then by the end of COVID, we had a whole album.
Yeah, we started going in, and it was just he and I. So like I would program the MIDI drums, and then do the bass, and then do different MIDI instruments, and then do all the guitars, and then generally I'd be like, okay, I have this like verse chorus idea. I'd send it to Nate. He'd do some vocals, and I'd be like, oh well, I like this part. Nate also has a tendency to he would write these amazing like hooks over like a bridge or something, and I'd be like, Nate, no, this is the chorus. And so I would move stuff around, and then we go back and forth, and then and mess with the arrangement and stuff, and then we end up with songs that didn't that matured over that time of they'd start one way and then end up being not completely different, but much more realized towards the end. And so we went back and forth, and then at one point we're like, we have 10 songs. Like, nice. Should we just put out like an album? And so we did that, and we talked to through a friend of a friend. We were connected with a guy named Will Beasley. He lives in Richmond, Virginia, and we sent him all of our stuff, and he just mixed it all down. And then we actually used he connected with one of our friends, this guy named, and I feel terrible, I don't know Clayton's last name, but his name is Clayton. And I
think he just goes by Clayton. Yeah, he doesn't have a last name.
Clayton. I feel like you could do that with a name like Clayton. Mm-hmm. But so he did the studio drums, because I just I'd done this in MIDI, and I'm like, so he recorded studio drums. It was very cool. They like connect us right into the soundboard. Like, we didn't have a video feed, but Nate and I just actually sat in here on the couch and like listen to them go through the tracks, and we'd be like, actually, this part you should try this, or this part you should try this, and I was texting him, and then we could hear him talk.
Yeah.
And so then they did the drums, then he mixed it all down, and then that was how our first record came about.
This EP is out on Roadrunner Records. What was the conversation like with the label? I know Roadrunner's, more of one of the bigger labels in the heavy music scene. Did they have any pushback or commentary on like wanting to surprise drop an EP?
No, honestly, they've been really sound with us. Like I think they appreciate that we have our own sort of vision, because we've done it more or less ourselves from the start. Really, we've been at the helm the whole time. So I think they were happy just going with the sort of thing that we wanted to do, and just helping us along the way. So it was really easy to get them to sort of agree to the ideas that we've been having and stuff like that. We're in direct contact with two of the guys there, and they just we just throw ideas around them, and they usually if we come up with something stupid, they'll definitely put us in check. But most of the time, I feel like we kind of have a good idea of what we're doing, and they're just happy to go along with it, and they put enough trust in us to have us do it ourselves. So it's worked out so far.
Nice. What led the band to Roadrunner?
We've always listened to Roadrunner bands. Like, growing up, every band we liked was on Roadrunner, like Slipknot, Machine Head. All our biggest influences were on there. So it was always like a pipe dream kind of thing. If we were ever talking about, one day maybe we'll get signed, it'd be like, we'd have never thought it'd be Roadrunner. So it was sick, because at first we heard from them a couple of years back when we first released Severance. Mm-hmm. And a couple of the guys got in contact with us and said like they liked it and stuff. So we knew from there was interest. Yeah. And then it just it was like a snowball effect, I guess. It just kind of, the interest grew and grew as the band grew. And in the end, it was like, we they came to us with an offer, and I think they could have put anything there. We wouldn't have refused it because, like I said, we all grew up listening to Roadrunner bands. It was like the label for us back in the day. You know, where when we first started listening to heavy music, so it was a no-brainer for us in the end.
It's fascinating to watch like this new metal revival happening. That's very much a specific sound that is not Resistor. At the same time, there's a rise in like you see bands like Gideon and Kublai Khan embrace like the caveman, ignorant, like meathead shit, right? Like
absolutely.
And you guys probably fall more into that category, but bringing in like the turntables and like I don't know if Limp Bizkit had gone heavier after $3 bills, right? Like instead of
dude, people ask me like, "Oh, what do you consider? How would you describe this?" That's how I do it.
But it's such an interesting thing because it's like there's never been a conversation of let's make a new metal song or let's do that. Like I don't consider us again. We're close to it, but like I don't consider what we do new metal in any traditional sense of the word. But like as soon as you put the turntables in, it's an unavoidable comparison. It just is, and you know that element is there because the turntables are an element of new metal, so the comparisons are unavoidable. So it's something we've never tried to necessarily lean into. Like you said, definitely more into like the caveman fuck you riffs. Yeah, but I
think there's a certain level of truth when it comes to. Not just like the comparison of new metal, because I definitely think like some of the riffs too, like go back and listen to some old new metal stuff, listen to Limp Bizkit, like it's comparable, like it definitely is.
There's influence,
absolutely.
There's not,
You know, it's not like we're playing some Animals as Leaders or Architects riff on that thing. You know what I mean? We're playing gong gong gong. You know what I mean? Like it's just like you said before, like that, just ignorance, the caveman riffs, like that's what it's about. I think that's what I like, and that it translates from. Because you can't say we sound like Asking Alexandria or any of these, early 2000s. It's close. It's close enough for a comparison, but I think it's still easy to see a difference.
Yeah. Well, there's a point in like the early to mid 90s where like hardcore had more like rapping style vocals in it too, and it's like that era kind of gets forgotten or ignored. But it's like hip hop had a huge influence on pure hardcore. Like
100%.
True. Yeah. That's the crazy thing too, is like I feel like from what I've seen, some of the biggest crossovers like between genres is rap and metal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you see like rappers wearing like a Slayer t-shirt. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's one of the biggest crossovers, and I feel like that's one, if you just listen to the two, you might not get just off the top. Oh yeah, I could see how that, you know what I mean? Like, but it's there. I mean,
that new Knock Loose track, right? Like,
there you go.
Killing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even when Linkin Park did Numb with Jay-Z.
This album is called Off the Edge. What led to that being the title of this record, and kind of what things were inspiring you from a lyrical perspective as you were writing this album?
Do you want to explain what Off the Edge is? Or?
You can explain how it's the lyrics.
Okay. So, what coming up with like Off the Edge, like the motto, that's like a motto, not just like our album name, but that's like what we, S8nt Elektric, and we live off the edge. we were going through a really hard time with a lot of stuff, a lot of like personal things, and just, I remember it was late night and we were in bed and, just tough time, I'll say that. And just unsure of like friendships with people and who we wanted in our life. And it was just like, it was a lot. But I remember thinking like, I don't know what or how, but I was like, I want to live. I really don't remember how, but I was like, I want to live like I thought of like on the edge, or like I was like thinking of all these different things, but then I'm like, no, like I slept on it, right? Because I was like, that's like Aerosmith, like that's completely different, whatever. And then I was like, well, like off the edge, because like why would I want to live on the edge? Like if you close your eyes, like you imagine like you're on like a tall skyscraper or something, and you're on that ledge, on the edge of the ledge, and like like there's so much waiting for you down there. Like there's so many opportunities. There could be mistakes too. There's so many things, but the only way to get to those opportunities and stuff is you have to trial and error and figure out what. But if you just stay up here and just be not who you're supposed to be, you're very afraid, very ordinary, very simple. I think it's just you're not gonna live a fulfilling life. And that's what Off the Edge is. It's like about living a fulfilling life. And we do these insane stunts to over exaggerate what Off the Edge is, but really Off the Edge is, you jump and you're like, I want to be a dentist. I want to walk that 1 mile. Like, I'm going to call my dad I haven't talked to in a long time. Like, those are the examples of living off the edge. I'm going to go work out if I'm tired. I'm going to, I'm going to learn Spanish. Anything that you want to do to make you a better person for yourself and those around you. That's what living off the edge is. And doing the stunts are super fun. They can be scary sometimes, but that's what it is. Anything that you deem that makes you feel good and makes you happy and makes you a better person. Like, I don't know, for me, like in that, when I do things, I try to tell myself, if I'm 80 years old, when I look back on my life, am I going to be happy on it? Like, am I happy with it? Did I do everything I could? Did I do everything I wanted to do? Like, I don't want to be 80 and like live full of regrets. And so that's where like Off the Edge came from.